Over 100 journalists were arrested last summer during the Floyd protests, and many more were assaulted, but those charges thankfully were normally dismissed. This video is about a reporter named Andrea Sahouri from the Des Moines Register, whose charges were not dismissed. Sahouri and her then-boyfriend, Spenser Robnett, were charged with failure to disperse and interfering with official acts after being arrested on May 31, 2020 by Officer Luke Wilson of the Des Moines Police Department while covering demonstrations in Des Moines, Iowa. The resulting trial was widely denounced as both absurd and unconstitutional. I will be including clips of the trial in this video, but if you want to watch the whole 9+ hours, I've also put the links for the Google Drive in the description. Jared, if you're watching, thank you. I want to really show you how stupid and pathetic this case was. You'd think if there was only one charged journalist brought to trial so far for all of the George Floyd protests last summer, then that trial would have unusually strong evidence or contain some unusual facts or unusual acts by the defendant. Nope, neither of those things. Neither of those things are true. The county prosecutor for Polk County, Iowa, the county in question, is this guy, John P. Sarcone. He has apparently been elected over and over for about 30 years, so hopefully that changes. The lead prosecutor actually prosecuting the case was this bloke, Brad Kinkade. Kinkade was noted in local media for not wanting to share evidence with the defense, saying that the charges were minor enough to not share evidence, but not minor enough to dismiss. They also didn't want to talk about body cam footage because the genius cop, Luke Wilson, who assaulted Sahouri, forgot to record it. His assistant attorney, a Drake Law student and former Iowa ACLU intern, Brecklyn Carey, also tried to put Sahouri in prison. Apart from being a depraved careerist who would intern with the ACLU, promote them on her Twitter, and then assist in the prosecution of a reporter, she was also determined to embarrass the shit out of herself in front of the nation.
Hey, that swing!
You might say that Brecklyn Carey is only a law student, but she was a perfectly sober adult who tried to put a reporter in prison for a maximum of 30 days. And there's no need to say allegedly because she was on camera trying to do it for 3 days. She also mocked a local activist on her second Twitter page in reference to the trial, so I don't think she's too conflicted about what she's doing. This should disqualify both Kinkade and Brecklyn from any promotion or elected office until they show sincere remorse and make significant amends. If anyone watching this ever has an opportunity to hire them or vote for them for public office, don't. The prosecution's opening statement was delivered by Carey. The point of it was to encourage the jury to forget that Sahouri was a reporter and to convict based solely on the law. She did this by making a bizarre baseball analogy.
Were they told to disperse? Did they disperse? And did they pull away? Those are our 3 questions, members of the jury, and right there, those are your answers. But when you are doing your job today, it is important that you don't forget that golden rule of baseball. You've got to keep your eye on the ball. You've got to remember what your job is, to remember these 3 questions, because as anyone who's ever stood in that batter's box knows, sometimes people will try to get your attention on something else.
Hey, that swing!
So, the prosecution called a Lieutenant Chad Steffen from the Des Moines Police Department to try to establish that a general dispersal order was given and that Sahouri and Robnett would have been able to hear the general dispersal order.
Lieutenant Steffen, we have paused the video at the, I believe that is, what second mark is that? The 38-second mark. Do you recognize anyone in this frame of the video?
The gentleman right there in the blue, looked like a hoodie type zip-up jacket, khaki shorts, and hat backwards with the face mask on.
Lieutenant, I am handing you a laser pointer right now. If you wanted to use that button right there, could you please circle the individual that you are referring to?
It should be right there, if you could see that.
And who is that individual?
I recognize him. I don't have his name in front of me, though, right now.
Is it fair to say that is one of the defendants in today's case?
Yes.
Okay. If you please resume the video.
Back up. Keep the peace. Back up. Keep the peace. Back up.
Keep the peace. Pause the video. Lieutenant, I can hear that there is something being said in the background over the loudspeakers. Could you please clarify for us what that is?
It's a PA system, and squad cars have a PA system attached to it where an officer is announcing to leave the area, disperse the area.
Overruled.
So just to clarify, Lieutenant, the command disperse was said over the loudspeakers?
You can hear in my body camera video faintly the orders that are given.
Yes, and you said faintly. It seems pretty quiet. Was that order that quiet in real life?
No, it wasn't.
Your Honor, may I insert an objection here? The recording should speak for itself.
I'm going to sustain that objection.
And Lieutenant, in this frame of the video, do you recognize anyone?
Yeah, so I believe right there, the guy right there with the mask and looks like a sleeveless tank top, jeans on, and a mask.
And who is that person?
I believe it appears to be Miss Sahouri.
Stefan also testifies that rocks and bottles are being thrown at the police that day. I looked at some of the footage taken by KCCI, a local news station that was on the scene that day, and that does seem to be true.
And so we began getting rocks and full bottle of waters thrown at us.
Back up here. Some of them are going to start to back up. We're going to back up with them. There's another rock throwing. One just hit a riot shield there. You can see some of the protesters up front are getting on their knees. A lot of rocks being thrown now. A lot of rocks being thrown now.
They also throw tear gas canisters back at police who weren't equipped with gas masks at the time.
At the officers now. Officer kicking it our way. We're good. We're good though. The wind is blowing it in the opposite direction of us. And protesters keep throwing it right back. And that wind is going to blow it right into that crowd of officers. They're going to... Yep.
How does it taste to not breathe?
Wow.
I can't breathe. Feel it.
Sahouri and Robnett are also visible in the same KCCI footage about 5 minutes prior to that happening.
Throwing at these officers. It really did. Rock just hit our camera.
Defense attorney Nicholas Kleinfeld, who was representing Sahouri and Robnett, took a few minutes to cross-examine Lieutenant Stefan.
Mr. Kleinfeld, cross-exam.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lieutenant, you don't know Mr. Robnett or Mr. Sahouri, is that correct?
Correct.
And you don't remember seeing him that night, is that correct?
No, I don't.
I'm sorry.
No, I do not.
Though Lieutenant Stefan's testimony does not say and cannot say that the defendants were in hearing distance of any order or were given any dispersal order.
Can you pause it right there? Now, Lieutenant Stefan, you're wearing a body camera at this time, is that correct?
Correct.
And that's what this footage is from, is that correct?
Correct.
It has a microphone on the front of it in addition to a camera, is that
Yes.
right? And what you're actually telling people there is to get back, is that right?
Correct.
And you're attempting to clear the street, is that correct?
Yes,
And that's because protesters were blocking Merle Hay Road, is that right?
that's correct.
And so you're not telling them to leave the scene completely, you're telling them to get back out of the street, is that correct? Or
We heard-
at least to allow traffic to pass, is that correct?
Yes.
And as you just pointed out in this video, Mr. Robnett complied with that, is that correct?
He was on the side of the road at the time that I pointed out, yes.
In fact, he got back, is that correct?
Yes.
The prosecution then called Officer Luke Wilson, who was the officer that arrested both Robnett and Sahouri. He notes that Sahouri didn't leave the scene, and it was probably because he had just pepper sprayed her.
At that point, then, what does that group do, or are you able to observe that group do?
It disperses, including Mr. Robinette. He ran off as well, with the rest, like the rest of the group just scattered. So it had its desired effect of dispersing the group from the area.
Did Ms. Sahouri disperse the way that the rest of the group you described?
No.
Okay. At that point, then, what did you do with regards to, I guess, what did you do once you deployed the fogger and the group kind of separated?
So I deployed the fogger. It began to disperse the group. Everybody kind of started to run. I sort of focused my attention towards the AT&T lot because that was where everybody, they kind of started running in all directions, but a large group of people had proceeded towards the AT&T, which is east of the Verizon across Merle Hay Mall, or Merle Hay Road, sorry. Then I kind of looked back to see where the rest of the group had gone, at which point, like I indicated, Mr. Robinette had ran, I believe, to the southwest direction. But Ms. Sahouri was still present in the lot, whether or not suffering from the effects of the OC or not, she was still present in the lot.
Unfortunately, Officer Wilson forgot to record the entire thing on his body cam, and then he also forgot to retrieve the recording after the fact.
Were you able to preserve the arrest of Ms. Sahouri and Mr. Robnett via your body cam?
No, sir, I did not.
Yes. Is it fair to say that had you known there was an issue, you could have reported it had you known it soon enough?
Yes, sir.
Officer, doesn't the report say that you're supposed to notify a supervisor after failing to record an incident that should have been reported?
What section are you referring to?
5B.
5B mandatory?
I'm sorry, 5A3. And I'm asked,
Once again, as I indicated earlier, I wasn't sure whether or not the incident had been recorded or not.
okay.
I believed that it had, and then as the situation and scene unfolded, we continued on, so I didn't necessarily have
Your Honor,
time.
I'm going to object as unresponsive and narrative.
Yeah, I will sustain that. Officer, please answer the question that Mr. Kleinfeld has asked.
Yes, sir.
Officer, isn't it true that the Des Moines Police Department policy requires officers who discovered they failed to properly record an incident to notify a supervisor at the conclusion of the incident?
Yes, that's the policy.
And the reason identified in the policy is to determine whether a record after the fact recovery should be attempted. Isn't that correct?
I'm sorry, could you slow down and speak up just a little bit?
And the reason identified in the policy for notifying a supervisor is to determine whether a record after the fact recovery should be attempted. Is that right?
Yes, sir, it says that.
And you did not do that that night, did you?
No, I did not do that night.
When the defense cross-examines, it becomes clear that Wilson maced and arrested Sahouri without warning while coming around a corner. Kleinfeld wanted it to be clear to the jury that Wilson was the first around the corner, to emphasize that Sahouri was not given an opportunity to comply with any dispersal orders, if she was even given any.
Whether or not they were in front of me, I think there were some alongside, some behind.
And so, well, when you encountered Ms. Sahouri and Mr. Robnett, there was no other officer there, is that correct?
Initially, yeah. I think there was some, I think maybe Officer Headland was off to my left, and some other officers. As we proceeded this way, there was essentially a couple of us, some going this way, over here because the crowd everybody was running in all different directions, but
And so, but as you come around that corner of Verizon, there's no officer in front of you, is that correct?
I don't believe so, but I can't tell you yes or no.
And at this point, you're using the pepper spray to disperse people, is that correct?
I was telling people they needed to leave, but yeah, I believe when I came around, there was a group of people and I deployed the pepper spray.
Were you giving them any chance to leave before you pepper sprayed them?
Objection argumentative.
Overruled.
I mean,
can ask it-
people were leaving, so obviously people understood that it was a bad area to be in. So yes, people had the chance to leave.
How long did you give people a chance to leave before you gave them any kind of order to leave and then pepper sprayed them?
I didn't time it. I don't know.
Wilson's testimony is frustrating for a few reasons. One, he is smirking most of the time, as if he is very satisfied with himself and what he has done. Two, he refuses to answer if Sahouri was given reasonable time to leave, despite being asked more than once. And three, he likewise does not answer when asked if he has to give them a chance to comply, because he knows the answer is yes, and he knows that he didn't. That this case even came to trial is insane, and that the prosecution's main witness was so unprepared for trial is insane. The main witness for the prosecution forgot to record the arrest, forgot to retrieve it after the fact, and cannot answer questions that go to the heart of the matter. Were Sahouri and Robnett given adequate time to leave? Or were they ambushed, pepper sprayed, and arrested immediately without warning?
Notice that individual just received in the video?
I believe they'd already been given the notice to disperse and were throwing rocks and bottles, as indicated by the video if you watch the people that are present.
And so
And the milk jug.
And so if they hadn't been given a prior order to disperse, would you have still been pepper spraying individuals?
If we were ordered to clear that area and they were destroying the area, yes, I would have essentially deployed the pepper spray.
Don't you have to give them a chance to leave first?
I believe as we were walking up and everybody's running, you can rewind the video, everybody's already running away and leaving.
Things don't get better the next day either. Wilson at one point admits that the reason Sahouri felt as if she was pulling her arm away could have been because she was actually trying to pull her arm up to block pepper spray going in her face, since as Wilson was arresting her, he was still spraying a mist of pepper spray.
Isn't it possible that even if Ms. Sahouri tried to pull her left arm up, it was because of the pepper spray effect in her face?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled. He's already expressed some opinion with regard to that, so he can answer.
That could have been the case. I don't know why she pulled her arm away other than she tried to pull her arm away from me.
KCCI also captured footage of Sahouri after she had just been arrested, and Robnett as well. And it was clear that at least Sahouri had been very severely pepper sprayed.
And as you can see, police are starting to make some arrests, detain some people for the
That's a Des Moines Register
vandalism and the
reporter
violence.
right there, zip tied.
Bo saying that's a Des Moines Register reporter who's under arrest there.
Okay.
Her hands are zip tied right there.
It sounds almost as if
Here,
she got some tear gas in her eyes.
too.
She is crying.
We're going to keep moving this way. They want us to move this way, and we're going to move this way.
Be careful, Bo. Move wherever they want you
Yes,
to
sir.
go.
Yep.
Kleinfeld asks Wilson how long it took after he rounded that corner to arrest Ms. Sahouri. At one point asking him if he thinks it took 30 seconds or less. And Wilson just can't say. He doesn't give any kind of answer.
How long do you think it took after you rounded that corner to get Ms. Sahouri into custody?
I don't recall an exact time.
Okay. Less than 30 seconds?
I do not know.
Did you not know you were going to be in court today? If you can't even establish approximately how long it took for you to get around the corner before you pepper sprayed and arrested a reporter, then what are we doing here? How did this case even come to trial?
Is this it?
Is this all you can conjure, Saruman?
Just one more note about Luke Wilson before we move on. It actually turns out that he is likely an unhinged maniac. I found an article on the internet by a Michael McNarney, who claims to have been present during a pretrial hearing. In this pretrial hearing, attorney Nicholas Kleinfeld tried to submit a body cam video into evidence. The body cam video allegedly shows Luke Wilson throwing a colleague to the ground and announcing, "We're going to fucking fight right now." I couldn't find this claim verified anywhere else in the media, so I thought I would ask Kleinfeld himself. Kleinfeld did clarify for me that it was Officer Chido's body cam video showing it, but that it actually didn't involve Chido himself. He says he tried to admit a body cam video that I believe characterized Officer Wilson acting aggressively toward another officer that night, but he couldn't elaborate because it wasn't allowed into evidence. I asked if, even though it wasn't admitted into evidence, if he would share that information with me, and he says he can't because there's a protective order regarding that discovery. I suppose you can take from that what you will, but I think if it were false, he most likely would have just denied it. The defense called another officer from the Des Moines Police Department, an officer named Natalie Chido. He asked him why he chose not to arrest another reporter on the scene, a journalist named Katie Aiken, who now works for the Iowa Capitol Dispatch.
And then the woman that we're looking at right there in between them, do you arrest her?
I did not.
Why not?
Because she held up a press pass and she had her hands up. She wasn't disobeying or showing any signs of not wanting to do what we said. She just looked to me to be scared. And the normal human reaction when you're dealing with someone in a stressful situation is fight, flight, or freeze. Well, she froze. And so I just tried to give her very simple instructions that she just needed to get up and go. She just seemed very scared to me. And so she's not disobeying what we're saying, she's just scared.
That other reporter, Katie Aiken, was also called by the defense.
Could you hear police giving any specific directions?
I did not hear police giving any specific directions.
Did you hear police give an order to disperse?
I did not hear an order to disperse at that time.
There. What did you see happen next after you turned around?
So Andrea was yelling, and I saw one of the officers pepper spray her in the face. And I was surprised by all of this, and I was confused as to why it was happening, because I didn't understand us to be breaking any laws or doing anything wrong.
Your Honor, I'm going to object as non-responsive after I saw her get pepper sprayed. That was the question. Everything else after that is non-responsive.
Overruled.
Detain Andrea.
From the moment that you described a few questions ago, where you first heard Andrea yelling, to turning around, seeing her being pepper sprayed, and your response, about how much time was that?
That was only a few seconds. This happened very quickly. So I tried one more time to say that we were reporters because I still believed this to be a misunderstanding.
Katie says that she thought it was a misunderstanding, but it probably wasn't. Officer Wilson was probably panicked and irate and looking to arrest the first person he saw. Attorney Kleinfeld for the defense described earlier in his opening statement that what Wilson told Sahouri after Sahouri told him that she was a member of the press.
While grabbing her, he pepper sprays her in the face. After, Miss Sahouri is putting her hands in the air and saying, "Press, press." Nonetheless, grabs her, pepper sprays her in the face, and tells her, "That's not what I asked."
And Sahouri would repeat this story when she testified in her own defense the next day.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so immediately I see this officer coming at me, and I put up my hands and say I'm press, because he was coming like right at me. and I didn't think it was a good idea to run from officers. I wasn't doing anything wrong, so I put up my hands. I said, I'm press, I'm press, I'm press. He grabbed me, pepper sprayed me, and as he was doing so, said, that's not what I asked.
This, that's not what I asked, shit, is probably something, if I had to guess, that Wilson's father yelled at him when he was a child, and that he probably said to him a lot when he was angry. I think it reflects that he had little to no self-control in that moment, no ability to reflect. And the trial only happened because this officer and this prosecutor can't admit that they made a mistake. Both Sahouri and Robnett end up getting acquitted on the last day of the trial, on March 10th. But it is important to note that the process itself is a punishment, and it's meant to intimidate and bully reporters. If you live in Iowa, remember the names John Sarcone, Brad Kinkade, and Brecklyn Carey, and please make sure their careers go absolutely nowhere. Before I wrap up here, I want to spend some time on the pattern of abuse and violence that I noticed from the Des Moines Police Department while just working on this video. Remember the reporter that the defense called, Katie Aiken? Remember how she wasn't arrested even though she was right next to Robnett and Sahouri? Well, the very next day she was assaulted by a different member of the Des Moines Police Department.
Officers over here, people have started running. I'm press, I'm with the Register. I'm with the Register. Shelby and I are with the Register. I know I'm press, I'm going. I'm press, I'm going, I'm press. I'm with the Des Moines Register, I'm going. I'm with the Des Moines Register, I'm going. I'm with the Des Moines Register. I'm with the Des Moines Register. Okay, I just got pepper sprayed in one eye. I'm running. I've lost Shelby. I got pepper sprayed in one eye. Oh, fuck. Okay. Okay. I've lost Shelby. I got pepper sprayed. Shelby! Hi. Ow, motherfucker. It got me in the eye. Oh.
I can't say for certain, but I hope and believe that this experience probably motivated her in her decision to testify on behalf of Sahouri and Robnett. Other reporters have taped them assaulting peaceful crowds with crowd control munitions. Looks like the Des Moines Police Department and their associated prosecutors just have it out for reporters. I think they probably pursued the case to make their violence against reporters look justified, hoping to get at least one conviction. But instead they just embarrassed themselves.
We've reached a verdict, is that correct? And, sir, are you the foreperson? Okay. I'm going to have you hand the verdict to my judicial assistant, if you would. If the defendants wish to rise, please. Okay, in the matter of the State of Iowa versus Spenser Robnett, case number SMAC 388754, on the charge of failure to disperse, we, the jury, find the defendant Spenser Robnett not guilty. On the charge of interference with official acts, we find the defendant Spenser Robnett, not guilty. The matter of State of Iowa versus Andrea Sahouri, case number SMAC 388817. On the charge of failure to disperse, we find the defendant Andrea Sahouri not guilty. On the charge of interference with official acts, we find the defendant Andrea Sahouri not guilty.